Welcome to the ODDSBREAKER'S #1 place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 20 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the ODDSBREAKERS. Follow us on social media / the ODDSBREAKERS. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag. For a 200% March Madness bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDS200. Terms, conditions, and locations apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the website and the podcast, we'd love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com to become a free picks newsletter subscriber. March Madness is rolling, my friends. Last chance to get into our free $500 tournament bracket. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com. You can see the article right on the front page under Value Situations. Click on it. You can enter for free. All you need to do is write us a 5-star review and or retweet this last podcast. Take a snapshot of it and send it to admin@theoddsbreakers.com. Please get in. It's starting to fill up. Don't miss out on your chance to win some free money. My friends, we have a great show for you today, and I got to tell you, I'm pretty exhausted. I've been on a lot of shows. I've been doing, of course, a lot of shows for the ODDSBREAKERS this week, and this should be the last one for the ODDSBREAKERS because we are going to cover with Kyle Hunter all of Saturday's NCAA tournament games. Being that Kyle and I have so much to talk about here, we are going to get this going right away. So without further ado, let's bring on Kyle Hunter from Hunter Sports Picks. And now I am excited to welcome back an amazing handicapper and my partner in crime at Better Odds Sports Betting. You know him as Mr. Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. Kyle, we've already somehow gotten to Wednesday, but it feels like Saturday with the amount of shows and stuff we've been doing all week, man. How you been?
I'm doing well, man. You know, this is a busy week, but it's one of those where it's crazy and hectic, but it's exciting too. You know, I mean, I can do this for a week or two. I don't think either one of us could do this every week. You know, we'd probably be too worn out after a while.
How does Adam do it? How does Adam do it at ATS is what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. Adam's a hard worker, a good friend, a really hard worker. He does a great job. I have to say, you know, this is the time of the year where things get a little bit crazy, and, you know, I was kind of joking around. I'm going to have to spend some more time with my family once we get through these next couple weeks because they're not seeing too much of me here of late. So, you know, but let's be honest. March Madness, great time of the year. You and I have already talked some games on the Better Odds video, and I'm excited to talk a lot more of these. I think there's some value to be had, and I hope we can help out the listeners.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what it's all about, and that's why we spend all this time doing it, man. Sharing information. We put so much work into it. I mean, hours and hours and hours, and I'm so happy to be able to talk about these games. We're not always going to be right, but hopefully we can give you some value and some great information that might make you stay away from a bad play or get on a good play. You know, that's kind of what it's all about here. But before we get into these games, Kyle, I'd have to ask you, I'm not sure if you filled out a bracket or if you partake in these childhood befuddlements, but what is your final four if you happened to already have filled one out?
You know, I haven't filled out my bracket, but I have a good idea of what I'm going to put here. I hate to be so much chalk, but I kind of have to be given the layout. You know, Gonzaga has a pretty easy path through there compared to what they could have had. Illinois has a tough path, but I like Illinois a lot, so I don't want to take them out of that. I've got Gonzaga and Illinois in the final game. My other final four teams will probably be Alabama in the East and Baylor in the South. I wanted to find a way to get Baylor out of there as well. I even considered taking a team like Arkansas or even Texas Tech. but they play each other early on. That's tough to do. It's tough to take a bunch of the 5 or 6 seeds and get them really far out. You and I have talked about this before. The problem is they have many more chances that they could lose. They don't have any free games at the beginning. So I think my finals will be Gonzaga, Alabama, Baylor, Illinois, and I think Gonzaga and Illinois, with Gonzaga cutting down the nets.
All right. Well, and that's fair for sure. And Illinois, in my opinion, as we mentioned before, has the toughest quadrant there, but they are really, really hot right now. And man, Dosunmu is just a sick player. He's going to be playing on weekdays in the NBA, as we all know. And I can't disagree with that. And many times I've told people, the way I'm going is 2 number 1 seeds and 2 that are not. 10 out of the 13 last champions are number 1 seeds, so you got to go at least with a couple in your bracket, in my opinion. I do have Oklahoma State there with the best player in the league in Cade Cunningham, and I do have Florida State there just kind of in that weird Michigan bracket because Michigan has all the trouble. But what I'm going to say is I'll probably fill out 6 to 8 brackets total, but the one that I put my name on is the one that we talked about already. But I think I'm going to have my other champions as Illinois, Gonzaga for sure. I already have Baylor in my main one. I'm going to have Oklahoma State winning it all in one of them. I might have Georgia Tech in one of them, and I think I'm going to put Yukon in one of them. And it's just because that's how I roll, man. If Yukon's in that final game in that weird side of the bracket, that's how I want. With book night, I'm going to feel good about it. And Yukon's one of those teams that's ranked very well on defense and very well now that book night's back on offense. I think they have some upside as well there. So that's my opinion. But hey, man, we're going to be here throughout the whole thing. We're going to be talking about the Sweet 16 all week next week. So lots of chances to win here. I think you and I both spend most of our times on the individual games, though, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I look at the sports betting aspect of this a lot more than I do the bracket. The bracket's fun, and like you, I am going to fill out some different ones as well. When I fill out the other brackets, Florida State is going to be in some of my Final Fours also. So I agree with you that they have some value there. Georgia Tech is a bold call. Yeah, that's a really bold one. And I hate that Georgia Tech had to play Loyola right away. I know that's not a game we're going to talk about, but both of them got hosed. I mean, they got absolutely hosed. So,
for sure. Well, I got to give a little back to them after that ACC tournament.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You have to give them some more credit because they put some money in your pocket.
Absolutely. 90-1 too, so I'm okay with losing a unit on that one. We'll be all right. But, maybe they do win it. Yeah, and the thing is that they're playing really confident basketball right now, and they're turning the ball over from other teams. 25 turnovers for Florida State to 7 from them, and that really said a lot. It also says a lot about Florida State that they were still in that game. Who turns the ball over minus 18 turnover margin, and you're still in that game? So that's why I'm still very high on Florida State coming in here, man. But before we get to games, I'd also want to talk about our Better Odds sports betting show that we've been putting out every single week. We're going to still do some stuff on baseball. Most likely it's going to be single. You're going to do maybe a play every once in a while during the weekdays, and I'll do one. And we'll get together on a few of them. But Better Odds sports betting is rolling right now through the NCAA tournament. We're going to be having more shows throughout all of March Madness here. And we want to give a little bit back to the followers there and build it up a little bit. So if you don't follow us on Twitter at the Better Odds SB at Better Odds SB on Twitter, please do. We're just going to give some free plays out one of the days of the tournament, whether it be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Kyle's going to do one day, and I'm going to do one day. It's just going to be to one of our random followers. We're going to offer it, and we're going to email you our plays, or however Kyle wants to send his. I'm going to do about mine via email. And if you don't already, please like our Twitter at Better Odds SB. So real excited to do that, Kyle, and give back a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be nice. I think we'll try to do some random things like that, as we try to build up. We always want to help out the people that we're doing these shows for, the videos, the podcasts, everything. I think you and I are both in this because we want to help people. I'm not in this to try to get rich or anything like that. I'm in this because I want to win, and I'm competitive, but I want to help other people win. So that's what we're trying to do, is give you the information that will also make you improved sports bettors just from listening to that kind of information. So we'll be giving out a day of free plays. Kiev will pick a random person. I'll pick a random person. And then going forward, we'll have lots of fun stuff going on there at Better Odds Sports Betting. All
right. That is at Better Odds SB. Kyle, let's start this out here with some systems or some trends coming into this tournament, man. You always dig the deepest to find some very important information. Let's hear what you have so far.
Yeah, I've got several. Do you want me to just kind of roll them off here pretty quick, or do you want you just
roll them off and we'll just kind of discuss them one by one really quick? But yeah.
Okay, so the first one, the round of 64, because that's what everybody's talking about right now. The under is 242 and 230, dating back to 2006. The over is 72 and 54 since 2017. And I will say there was 1 year in there. Remember when the rules changed and they put the shot clock down from 35 to 30? They were also calling more fouls. 1 year where the over did really well, and it kind of skews that. The best under games have been the ones with a wide spread range, the high seeds versus low seeds, less fouling. The best overs have been the games with the tight spread. And Kiev, I'm going to just throw this one in right here because I think it fits well. I haven't mentioned this one yet at all, so this is exclusive to the odds breakers. So if you're listening, pay attention to this one. It's a pretty good angle. In the first round in the NCAA tournament, and just noticed this one here recently, the under is 82 and 49. That's almost 63%, 62.6% in games with a 1 through 4 seed that's favored by at least 3 points. They're almost always going to be favored by at least 3 points. I don't know when they wouldn't be favored by 3 points. And then a total of 136 or higher. So you don't want the really low totals in those cases because that's more dangerous with, somebody gets hot or fouling at the end. The reason this angle is done so well is because these top seeds are usually not in a close enough game to where we have a foul fest at the end of the game. There's also a lot lower chance of overtime. So the first round in the NCAA tournament, again, a 1 through 4 seed with a total of 136 or higher. And it is -3 or higher, but like I said, I think it's always going to be -3 or higher. So basically 136 or higher on the total, and a 1 through 4 seed. The under is 82 and 49, 62.6% in the NCAA tournament. And I will say this dates back to 2005, 2006.
Wow, that is very significant at 62%. And I think the reason is people assume that these teams are going to keep scoring when they're blowing these teams out, and they're not. They're getting ready for their next game. They know they are not getting rest. Their coach is in their face. They're saying, run this clock out. Let's get out of town. We don't want injuries. That's probably a big part of it. The other part of it, the backdrops are different. They're both on neutral courts. And obviously these teams that have been scoring a ton in conference might have a slight little hiccup coming in. And that's for the dog and the favorite there. So that makes total sense to me, Kyle.
Yeah, I think that this one will be predictive in the future as well. And obviously, I'm not saying it's going to work every single year. 1 year something could be a little bit different, but this is one you're going to file away. You're going to want to file away with future March Madness tournaments. I think this will be a good one going forward, playing the under in those 1 through 4 seed games with a total of 136 or higher. So let's talk about ATS here real quick, Kiev. Dogs are 235 and 233 since 2006. So we're almost exactly down the middle in the round of 64. Doesn't surprise me. The odds makers are good at setting these numbers, certainly. So I'll move on to the next one here. Fade the public. Teams receiving 37% of the bets overall. So the public is heavily against them. 107 and 82 ATS. That's 56.6%. in the round of 64, and this one dates back to 2010-2011 season. So what you're looking for here is the team that everybody just assumes is not going to cover, and you get all the talking heads and all the bettors and everybody just thinking that this is an easy cover for one side. You bet the other side here. You've been very profitable. Kiev, I don't think either one of us are too surprised by this.
Not at all surprised by it. And I think that first trend that you said about dogs being equal, you'd expect dogs to be a little bit more, but thank goodness for the 12-5 upset upset that everybody keeps talking about every year, because those are driving those numbers down into public dogs, right? These are dogs that the public's jumping all over, thinking they're outsmarting every single person out there. They probably heard it from somebody from CBS, and the word spreads, and or who knows where they got the information. But everyone thinks that they can beat the system here. Don't look at it as a 12-5. Look at it as a good team playing a team that's not quite as ranked as high as them. Because the 12-5 upset just happens because the 12 is usually a pretty good team. But that doesn't mean the spread's right. And that doesn't mean that the 12 is always going to win. There's upsets in all kinds of these things, right? So look into that and make sure you know what your number is before you make the play. Don't play because everybody else is doing it. I mean, there's already been some dogs that have went down, and you could have a good chance in the middle and not even have to worry about it and coming back for half or even for your full bet. So if you're one of those fortunate people that got in early, you can always come back. So it's not too bad of an idea early to predict some of those live movements as well.
I agree. And then, Kiev, that was a nice segue into the next one with fading the trendy underdog, because these underdogs that get a lot of talk, they get a lot of run in the media, they can be really dangerous because, it's kind of like this in the stock market. Once the stock has gone from 6 to 12 and everybody's talking about it, it's some small cap, then you pile in at 12. You already missed the 100% move, and now you're talking about a team that was a trendy underdog. Maybe they were getting 6.5 points, and now by the time you bet it, they're getting 4. We know that a lot of these games come really close to the spread. The odds makers are really good at setting the number, and if you're getting 2.5 or 3 points worse consistently, it's really going to hurt you a lot. And fading a trendy underdog means fading an underdog getting 51% or more of the spread bets. So you're taking the other side in that trendy underdog, and in that you're 124-90. That's 57.9%. That one dates back to the 2005-2006 season. So here we're looking at the teams that everybody's talking about is going to pull the upset, and we go with the other side because the lines come down to where the favorite has value.
Well, I 100% agree with that. And, man, these trendy underdogs are a little dangerous for this reason, especially, that nobody thinks about. What do you think about that team that's favored in this team is thinking when this spread is going down? And you can't tell me that these kids don't see the spread. They all do nowadays. Sports betting is legal in most of these states now. And they did before, but we just didn't talk about it because it was kind of one of those hush-hush things. These teams get pissed off. They feel disrespected when nobody is talking about them, and they come out playing out of their minds. Just remember that when you're fading a very public dog. What do we have next, Kyle?
Absolutely. I think that's very much the case. And now I've got some. Do you want me to give some conferences, how they've done in the round of 64? You want me to just run through those really quick?
Yep, pound through those, and then we'll get into the games.
Okay. Yep. So we've got the Big Sky is 4-10-1 ATS. The Big Sky is a weak conference. It doesn't really surprise me very much that they have struggled. The MAAC, so the Metro Atlantic, that's the Iona conference, 4-10-1 ATS as well in the round of 64. The West Coast Conference is 9-16 ATS, and the ACC is 36-52 ATS. So those are the ones that have done poorly. The Ohio Valley Conference, the OVC, is 12-5 ATS. I do think that's a bit of an undervalued conference in general. I don't know that Morehead State's a great team out of it this year, but we've seen some really good teams, Belmont and Murray State, in the past. Missouri Valley Conference, 15-9 ATS. I think people are starting to realize the Missouri Valley Conference is pretty good, so I don't know how under the radar that one is anymore. The MAC, the Mid-American, 10-5 ATS. I continue to think that the Mid-American Conference in basketball is a pretty deep conference. They have some pretty good teams there to where they get in the big dance, and they've actually played some pretty decent competition. So I think that's probably a good one in the future as well. The CAA, 12-5-2 ATS. Now, I will say that I think the CAA is much weaker much weaker than it used to be. You remember when we had the run from George Mason, teams like that, VCU when they were there. The CAA has made some really big runs, but now they don't have the same level of teams that they've had in the past. So I'd be a bit skeptical that they'll be able to keep that up. And then Kiev, our favorite conference, the Big Ten, 48-35 ATS in the round of 64. So the Big Ten's made you a lot of money as well.
Oh, yes. Fantastic. And big shocker, the ACC is not great to bet on first round. Who would ever thought, the most public conference of the whole country, and not shocked there. I will say that those are fantastic trends, but I am concerned for the Big Ten a little bit because they are the ACC of this year, let's just say, in everybody's minds. People will not shut up about them, and I have my concerns because of certain issues with how they were seeded. So we'll see what happens there. And I wish there was 10 MAAC teams in this conference because that would just be fade, and we'd be all rich. So the Metro Atlantic is fun, but I don't think Iona stands much of a chance against Alabama, man. Let's get right into some of these games then, Kyle, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So we have the East bracket, and we'll just kind of go through that bracket. And I kind of just did it by the time the games are on. I think Kyle's going to talk about just the order of the bracket itself, which is fine. But you should be able to find these pretty easily, obviously, in your books. Colorado versus Georgetown. Georgetown's about a 5-point favorite, and the total is 138. I think it's pretty obvious that the Pac-12 is overrated. I mean, this is one thing that worries me a little bit. People have been saying that so much. Colorado, nice record, but I hate them on the road. I mean, we've talked about this throughout the year. They lost to Cal on the road. They've had some of their worst games, minus the USC game this year on the road. Colorado's best wins actually came within their own conference. So you have to really question how good the Pac-12 is. My thing, Kyle, is when you're looking at this tournament, you kind of have to have an idea of where you place a conference to make some of these bets, right? And in my opinion, I'm not super high in the Big East either, right? I'm going to tell you that I made a very public play on this one. I did take Georgetown plus the 5. I thought that it might go down because they're 1. And is it a true position for me? Maybe. One thing I do like about Georgetown, which is different than teams like Appalachian State, is they did win 4 of their last 6 games before going into that Big East tournament run. Okay? I do like that. And I also like the fact that the Hoyas, their last 3 games, and I guess, of course, it's during the Big East tournament, they've been shooting 41.7% from 3. So does that stay the same? I don't know. But I don't have a problem fading Colorado, who is about 3 points per game worse on the road than they are at home. So I'm going to take the points here, and I still believe in this play. I was a little bit back and forth on it, but I'm going to back it. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I don't have any strong position on this one. I will say these are 2 teams that I wanted to bet against, and now they're playing against each other. So, I figured the public would like Georgetown so much based on that run. And then at the other side of it, I don't want to bet Colorado. I'm not betting Colorado because I know how they play away from home. I don't think they're a bad team, but Boyle, their coach, has not been good away from home at all. And, if you think about it, Colorado, the one thing they have going for them that we do have to give them credit on is they really shoot free throws well, 82.2% from the line. That's very impressive. On the other side of things, like you said, Colorado on neutral or on the road has been a totally different team. I mean, they've lost to some really bad teams in those games. Georgetown, I feel like Georgetown's set up to be a pretty good team here these next few years. Some of those young players, Harris, the freshman, looks like a really good player to me. I think that Patrick Ewing's team has a bright future ahead of them. And I do think that in this game, if I had to bet a side, I would probably bet Georgetown. I think my favorite bet in this game would probably be the under. I think that Georgetown made a few more shots than you would expect in that Big East tournament. And Colorado's shooting percentages on the road have not been good at all. So I lean to the under in this one.
All right. Well, that's a good lean, too, because maybe Georgetown does kind of cool it down a bit, and Colorado shows their on-the-road weaknesses. Yeah, I mean, those free throws up in the mountains, that the ball's a little bit lighter, isn't it, Kyle? Kind of just floats in the basket, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the right person to ask about exactly stuff for altitude. I know altitude is a great thing to have home court advantage, though. Right. You know, I think both of us have been to Colorado, and you go high up in the mountains and stuff, and it's pretty quick. You start losing your breath a lot quicker than you would other places, and that's been proven to be great for the home court advantage. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with their free throws or not. I do know that, you know, they have some guys that are really good at shooting free throws that get to the line a lot. You know, McKinley Wright, Batty, the big man. So, you know, the fact that they have guys who get there a lot and they shoot 90%, you know, really good shooters, that skews their number a bit. But, you know, free throws is one thing, but, you know, they're really not a great team outside of that. And we've talked about the Pac-12 quite a bit. I think Colorado's ceiling is limited based on the way they play away from home.
All right, we'll have to get Bill Nye, the science guy, on then next time to test that theory. But the truth is, a favorite of like between 3 and 7 points, if they're a great free throw shooting team, that's when you might not want to fade them, because they will hit their free throws in Foul City at the end. So that is a concern with the Georgetown bet. But I'm sticking with it, man. I'm all Patrick Ewing here, so we'll see what happens here. The next game, I'm going to talk about NC Greensboro versus Florida State, and the spread's about 10.5, and the total is about 145. Kyle, I was a little concerned that I was going to hurt your feelings on this handicap here, man, because I know how much you love NC Greensboro all year long. And, I mean, they've done well in the Southern Conference, right? They've done very well. But there's a part in the middle of the season that we were kind of wondering what was wrong with them, and we've talked many times about that. But, I mean, let's look at the facts here. Greensboro only ranks 255th in effective field goal percent, 48.2, while Florida State ranks 32nd at 54.4 in a much better conference. When Florida State lost to Georgia Tech, like I said earlier, 25 turnovers to 7, and that game was still close at the end. I mean, you think that they're still thinking about that? I think that they clean it up a little bit. I think that they have to clean it up coming into this conference. And that's kind of why I like Florida State right here. I think the height of this team is going to cripple the Spartans' shooting chances. I know they have one big guy down there, Hayden Koval, right? 7'1", but he only plays half the game. And everybody on Florida State is like 6'5" and bigger. You know, I was shocked. I thought that Georgia Tech was a losing ticket until they just kept stealing the ball the whole second half. So the other concern I have for UNC Greensboro is that they're going to need a 3-point game to keep up with Florida State in their pace. Yeah. They unfortunately rank 312th in 30% 3-point shooting. So I think there might be a play coming here on Florida State, and it seems to be going down. So let's see where this thing ends up, man.
Yeah, here's the thing about this game is I like UNC Greensboro as a team, and I've made money on them over the last few seasons. The problem is this is a terrible matchup for them. You know, they definitely didn't want to play the tallest team in the nation. UNC Greensboro, if you look at the type of shots they take, they want to get inside. They don't want to shoot the three. Like you just said, I think that was the key point there. They shoot 30% from three-point range. The number one reason for that is Isaiah Miller is their superstar player. He takes more than a third of their shots, 35.4% of their shots by himself. He's 10 for 47 on threes this year, 21%. He's great when he gets to the basket, but he's 6 foot and 190 pounds. He's not used to going up against a team like Florida State. This is not going to be, SoCon guys that, you don't have those big shot blockers and the height all around. Like Kiev just said there, Florida State just doesn't just have a couple tall guys. Everybody's tall here, even their guards. I think with Miller, he's going to have somebody 6'6" guarding him instead of somebody 6 foot like he usually does. I think that length could really bother him quite a bit. The one thing that would hurt Florida State in this game is that Florida State does turn the ball over a lot, and UNC Greensboro is going to press. They press quite a bit, about as much as anybody. Typically, they press to kind of slow the game down. I know that sounds different, but if you use the zone press and you kind of back into your defense, if you get a quick steal and score, great. If not, the other team has to take some time to run their set. So in general, I kind of lean to the under in this game, thinking that Greensboro will have a hard time scoring here. And this one also fits that angle of, the 1 through 4 seeds that are favored with a total that high. So I think I like the under. And I don't disagree with you that I think Florida State is the right side.
All right, my man. Good stuff then. And maybe this keeps going down. We'll see what happens. I'm really interested to see where this ends up on Saturday morning here. Next game, St. Bonaventure versus LSU. LSU minus about a 1.5-ish, 2 points-ish. Total is about 144, my man. I think this game lines up to some of the stuff you said earlier, Kyle. And I am playing this game. Everyone keeps talking about the Bonnies, man. How the Bonnies are going to beat the Tigers. I think it's just fun to say the Bonnies, right? How do you get to an NCAA tournament and not say the Bonnies? Well, that's what I'm fading is the Bonnies. I know LSU doesn't play a ton of defense here, but they certainly can hang around on offense with some of the best teams in the league. You saw that SEC tournament where they were one tip shot away of being the SEC tournament champion, okay? The biggest issue that I have with the Bonnies is that how are they going to keep up with LSU when they only have a 6-man rotation? And when I say 6-man rotation, I mean the 6th guy only plays 33% of the game. Yeah. That is not good for fatigue with LSU speed, and that is certainly not good for foul trouble. So LSU plays in a much tougher conference here, let's face it. St. Bonaventure, their defensive rating on KenPom at 17, if you really think that's correct, then I suggest that you start donating more of your money to charity because those sports books are not going to be doing that. 17 is just a metric used, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you're saying their defense is much better than Big 12, SEC, ACC, Big 10. Yeah, right, man. I'm fading the Bonnies here. I'm taking LSU, and I think it's going to be a pretty big play.
So, just as a fan, this is typically the type of game that I'd want to root for St. Bonaventure, right? We like rooting for the underdog, the team that's not the big name, but I can't disagree with you. My biggest concern for St. Bonaventure is exactly what you said. They're playing 5 guys. And they do not sub. It's really, you hardly ever see a team use the bench less frequently than St. Bonaventure does. I don't know that I've ever seen it. LSU is pretty good at drawing fouls, 114th in the country, free throw attempts compared to field goal attempts. And this is an LSU team that St. Bonnie's going to try to pack the paint and make them shoot from outside. LSU does have some good outside shooters. I think they can do that. But I also think that LSU has enough height and talent that they're going to still try to get to the basket. They're not going to let them just force a three every single time. And as you look at this game, I got a couple other things that I thought were pretty interesting about this one. LSU defensive efficiency. I know that LSU's defense is not good overall, but in the last month, they're 90th in defensive efficiency, and before that, they were 131st. So they are improving. LSU has also been playing zone 19% of the time during that time. So LSU is kind of messing around with trying to switch their defenses, and that can work from time to time. Opponents get used to running against a man defense. You switch it up, play zone defense. I think the strength versus strength thing that I'm looking forward to here, LSU's transition offense is ranked in the 92nd percentile, and St. Bonnie's transition defense is in the 97th percentile. So I guess if I had to take a total, I'd probably take the under in this one. I'll be honest, I don't love taking LSU unders. The type of team they are, they can score a lot of points, not great at defense. I agree with you. If I had to take a side here, I would take LSU.
All right. Well, last thing I'll say is the Bonnies had some really great free throw luck this year. They rank 4th in the nation in opponent free throw shooting, meaning just teams failed to make free throws. I don't think they're shouting out the word Noonan or anything to them. And, you got to look at that. It's just there's points left on the table if people are not making easy free throws. Well, it's going to be a little different here against LSU. And they are going to pack it in, but at least, they have to be in that circle to draw a charge. And I think LSU's got some really good ball movement down low as well. So really loving my LSU play. Next one is Iona versus Alabama. Alabama minus 16.5. The total in this is about 147.5. So, we mentioned this one on our show, Better Odds Sports Betting, with Simon. And I think basically we came to the same consensus is that Alabama fast break points is huge, and Iona loses the ball at a 22.5% clip of possessions, So basically what we're saying here is that this spread looks big, but there could be a chance for a massive blowout here, not only because there's a big talent discrepancy, but also Alabama's going to want to stick it a little bit to Rick Pitino, who also coached in the SEC, if you remember his Kentucky days. So, this is a spot that the public's going to jump over the name Pitino, in my opinion, and it's already started to happen. But I just, from a pure metrics standpoint, have this 81-63. But I would not be shocked at all if Bama has to slow it down because they're up by 25 to 30 points later in this game, Kyle.
Yeah, I like Alabama in this one as well. I think Iona, we talked about how the MAAC has been a really bad bet in the first round in the past. Look, I think we have to give Rick Pitino credit for getting his team to this point. I'm not a big Rick Pitino fan in general. Usually I'm rooting for the underdog, just as a fan, but I think I'd be rooting for Alabama in this one anyways. But, Alabama to me has such a huge mismatch when it comes to the turnovers. Like you said, Iona ranks in the 7th percentile in taking care of the ball on offense, 22.5% of their possessions and in turnovers. And Alabama is in the 86th percentile in forcing turnovers. So this is a team that is going to force turnovers like crazy. Iona's good on the offensive glass, but Alabama has bigger players than Iona does, and they're much bigger than the teams Iona's been playing against. Iona has a really short team on average, only 76 inches. So, this is a team where Iona doesn't have the height. They can't take care of the basketball. And Alabama's going to shoot a lot of threes here. So maybe if they miss a bunch of threes, that this game could be a bit closer. But I think this is a pretty big mismatch. And to be honest, it's interesting to see the line coming down to 16.5. I see 65% of the bets on Alabama and 68% of the money on Iona. So right now it seems like some sharps on Iona, maybe even some public money there on Iona. The public does bet March Madness earlier than what they do the other games, obviously. But I have to say, I disagree with this line move, and I agree with you. I like Alabama here.
Yeah, that's right. Could be some market manipulation here, too, if they come back on Alabama pretty hard. There's a lot of steam chasers in sports betting. When they see a little bit of a movement, everyone seems to pile on, and then the real players come back a lot harder on the other side. I've seen that happen. Same kind of shenanigans that happens in the stock market. Don't think it doesn't happen when there's such a huge handle like the NCAA tournament. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Hard to predict unless you really work behind the counter and talk to the manager. The typical Joe's not even going to know this behind the counter. You might start looking for some of those issues where people are trying to move the line a little bit to come back harder. And that also sets them up for a little bit of a middle, too, when that happens. Next game, we have Maryland versus Yukon. Yukon's about -3. The total is about 130. Now, this one's tough for me. I'm serious. I did say I do like Yukon in possibly one of my brackets to be a Final Four team, or maybe I'll just do it to win it all. But the Terps are this team that when people are down on them or they're a dog, they seem to perform pretty well in the Big Ten. I mean, they have a nice wins at Wisconsin, nice wins against Purdue, and a very nice win against Illinois here. My biggest issue is that this is a streaky team, this Maryland team. You know, you saw them down to Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament by 12. And you thought your Michigan State ticket was golden, and so did I. And then Michigan State loses by double digits. Yeah, I mean, that's how streaky Maryland is. And, of course, Michigan State's just not that great of a team. But the flashes, they're long duration, but they always seem to be in your game, you know. Now, I did talk about Book Knight and coming back and helping the scoring in this team. And I do think the stats are off a little bit for Yukon because Book Knight is back. But both you and I made some money on Yukon unders because of their defense. You know, when I'm looking at a team to back in the NCAA tournament, you have to look at both sides of the ball. You know, you really have to look at your offense, and you really have to look at, you know, how much defense is going to be played. I mean, Ken Pom has Yukon number 16, and this is one of the few teams that's ranked both top 30 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, not counting the number 1 and 2 seeds. There's only 3 teams: Yukon, Texas Tech, and Purdue. Those are the only 3 teams above the 2 seed that are top 30 in both offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. I hate the 3. I would like a 2.5 if I'm going to play Yukon. But what I will say is I think they do come out winning this game at the end. I wouldn't mind using them in a little bit of a money line parlay if you're going to have a little fun. So that's my idea here. No play as of right now. Any thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, I don't think I'll bet this game. RJ Cole has had a concussion. He's listed as probable. You want to make sure he's going to play here for Yukon if you want to bet on Yukon in this game, certainly. Key part of their offense. Second most important player on their team. And from the other side, I have to think that Maryland has struggled with consistency. You know, I don't know how much I really trust Mark Turgeon's teams. You know, he hasn't proved to be very good late in the seasons. And while they play a really good schedule, Maryland had some great wins and some terrible losses. You know, I still remember the game where they blew it at home against Penn State when they had the 20-point lead or whatever it was. You know, Maryland kind of backed their way into this tournament. I don't like betting that team in that first game, so I'm going to lean toward Yukon here. Like you, I don't want to lay 3 points. If I was taking this one, I'd want to lay 2.5, and I think 2.5 is going to happen. I think you'll be able to get that.
I think so too, and I am worried about Wiggins too because that guy can crush when he's hot. Yeah. So Wiggins, Ayala there. Whew, yeah, and so it could be a very challenging game as well. It wouldn't be a big bet if I do make a play on it. Next game, Texas versus Abilene Christian. Abilene Christian -9. Total is 140. You know, and whenever it's a single-digit team in a lesser conference, you scratch your head a little bit. You know, you get a little worried. Texas comes off this massive game beating Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State couldn't do anything. I watched it. I mean, Texas was launching threes. They're hitting everything. 65% shooting, I believe, with a minute left or something in the first half. It's just one of those games that they would have beaten anybody. And you get those games. I've seen Wisconsin do it. I've seen all kinds of teams. Just like, imagine if they're facing this team, they would have beat everybody. But Abilene Christian's just kind of solid. There's a solid little team right there. And the Wildcats, they only had a tough non-conference game against Texas Tech, and they lost by 7. Now the spread's 9 against another Big 12 team, and they probably improved. I guess they did play Arkansas and lost by 13. So the very weak conference scares me off betting this dog, and I'm probably going to lean Texas here. I think I have Texas by 10, 77-67, but I'm not going to play it. Maybe Texas would be in a moneyline parlay. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
So a couple things I wanted to point out for this game. Abilene Christian is a really short team. And I'm not trying to talk about this too much because, you know, it's not all just about height. But when you're one of these smaller schools, smaller in multiple ways, you know, smaller name and a shorter team, it hurts quite a bit when you play a team that's that much taller than you because all those shots are contested a lot easier than what they are for your opponents normally. Abilene Christian ranks in the 2nd percentile in average height 6'3" as their average height for the team. They have a 5'7" guard who plays a lot. Abilene's guards are the shortest in the country of any group of guards in the entire nation. Texas is the 73rd percentile in height among their guards. It will surprise me if Abilene can score very easily in this game. I think that they're going to have a hard time on offense here. Abilene is a great passing team, assists on 67% of their shots, of their scores. So this is a team where they really are very good at passing the ball around. That's actually in the top 1% in assist rate. So Texas is a team to me that has a huge athleticism advantage, height advantage. Texas uses a lot of ball screens on offense, 35 points per game off of ball screens. Abilene ranks in the top 5 in the country in defense on ball screens. This all points to what I'm saying is I think I like the under here. And like you, my number is actually a little higher than this number, I believe. But it's one where when I adjusted it for Lucas Oil Stadium, I dropped my number some. So tough shooting backdrop. Lucas Oil Stadium is going to be the one that I would look for if you want to bet unders, because it's the big football stadium where you probably want to adjust your number down by at least a couple points if they're playing in that gym, especially for a team like Abilene where they're certainly not used to playing in a massive football dome. So I kind of like the under in this one. Abilene, if they were in the right matchup, I think could give somebody trouble, but I don't know if Texas is the right matchup for them.
I think this fits your system too. Top 4 team, 62% to the under here. So good stuff. Texas does play a little bit faster than their tempo shows, but I think the situation here in the stadium that they're playing at Lucas Oil, there's a good chance it's going to hit. So I'm with you on that, man. I totally. Look at this spread, and there's a chance that Abilene might not score anything. So you can get two sides of this. You can get the Texas letdown from the winning the Big 12 and shooting out of their minds, and they can't hit nothing the whole first half. That happens. And then you can get the whole Abilene Christian can't shoot over Texas. So good stuff on that one, man. Well, we're rounding the corner, Kyle, moving in to the West bracket. And I do want to mention that, obviously, the play-in games, the Michigan spread and the Gonzaga spreads aren't out there. Probably games that I don't want to be interested in anyway, but there's a couple play-in games in this. The Michigan State UCLA is one of them in this bracket as well. So we're not going to have any odds on there, but maybe if you're fortunate enough to be a subscriber of Kyle's at Hunter Sports Picks or us at the Oddsbreakers, we might have something, we might not. We'll see. But Kyle, why don't you get us started here in the West bracket?
So I'm going to go in order of the bracket, as I said, from top to bottom. So Gonzaga, we obviously don't know who they're playing, like you said. So we'll start with Oklahoma and Missouri. And in this one, I have to say, this is probably my least favorite game we've talked about so far. So, in order to save some time and to say to the listeners, I really don't know what to do with this game. I know that Lon Kruger's 7-13 ATS in the NCAA tournament, not very good. Missouri's not really a team I want to bet either. I don't really trust either of these teams too much. This one is being played in Lucas Oil Stadium, so if I were going to take something here, I'd probably take the under. But these are not two teams I love betting the under with. So in this game, Kiev, I have to say that I'm going to pass on this one. And I think it is okay for us to just pass on some of these. We have plenty of games to talk about.
I'm glad you passed on it because I didn't prepare it. And the reason I didn't prepare it is because every time I look at it, I kind of frown. And I mean, you have Oklahoma here that is very disappointing type team when they go away. They're minus 6.5 I call them efficiency points per 100 as far as being away from home. And you can see that right away on Haslametrics. If you don't use that site, I highly recommend it. But that's one reason to fade them. But at the same time, I mean, Missouri is all over the board. It's really tough to bet on Missouri. I don't know what I'm going to get. Am I going to get that big upset Missouri team that beats Illinois? Or am I going to get that Missouri team that would lose to Georgia? Very, very up and down. They're kind of like Xavier in that way, in my opinion. So probably going to lay off this one. I would lean to Missouri just because Oklahoma's so bad on the road here, but or away from home anyway. But it's tough. And one thing that I will say is that I think the Big 12 is better than the SEC in general. Not everybody would agree with me on those thoughts, but just looking how they did in the Big 12 tournament, Oklahoma did do very well in their non-conference game against Alabama. That was in the middle of January 30th. They beat Alabama straight up, and Alabama's supposed to be the best SEC team in the nation here. Well, Missouri, when they played theirs, they struggled against TCU and went to overtime against TCU. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because that's more of a distraction game, and it's good to fade when a team's doing really well. You're like, well, they don't want to play this game even, so you might want to fade them next year. Think about that. But right now, I don't have an opinion either, Kyle. What do we have next?
Okay, so next up, Creighton and Ucsb. This is a game that's going to be talked about a lot. Creighton, the way they performed in that last game against Georgetown, and obviously they've had some off-the-court issues to where you kind of wonder about their team chemistry at this point. My initial lean is UCSB in this game, but as I look at this game a little bit closer, I don't think I'm going to bet on them here, because the Big West has not been good at all in the NCAA tournament either. They've had some major blowouts. This is a weak conference. If you look at UCSB's schedule this year, they're 22-4, but they haven't played anybody in Ken Palm's top 100. And Creighton is ranked 19th. So this is a big jump for them. The question on the Creighton side is, what's going on with Creighton here at the end of the season? They've had some bad losses at Xavier, lost pretty badly at Villanova, and then that blowout loss to Georgetown. It does make you wonder how you bounce back from a game like that, to be honest. I think in this game, the other thing is, I think this is going to be one of those trendy underdogs, Kiev. I think this is, right now it's 50-50 on the percentages, but I honestly think that, UCSB is going to be the team that the public bets here in this one. So if you like UCSB, you probably take the 7.5 that's there right now. I think that goes down. Creighton is not likely to get public support after the way they just played in that last game. So I have a slight lean to UCSB here in this game, but I'm not going to bet this one myself.
Yeah, I've already heard UCSB on TV a couple times, so I agree that they're kind of a public dog in this situation. The whole narrative on Creighton is the team isn't as invested due to the whole Greg McDermott thing. He used a poor choice of words, and he even volunteered to resign, which is just whole kind of part of life nowadays. But I'm going to fade that narrative, and I'm fading it because why would these kids not want to play and try to get into the NBA or wherever in the NCAA tournament just because their coach said something stupid? I'm going to fade that narrative, and I hope that narrative keeps running strong, because I will bet Creighton if this thing does get down to 6.5 points, right? I have Creighton winning this game 76-68. All right, so I'm kind of at that brink where I agree. I think the Santa Barbara Conference, it's just awful conference, and they look really good in it, though. I will say that it looks like they don't have a weakness, but then there's also high school teams that don't have a weakness, and if they played a college team, they get destroyed. It's just the way it is. You can't look at their efficiency marks when they're playing in such a terrible conference, and that's a narrative that people should be fading as well. No play for me at 7.5. The Ken Palm says 6. So I think that's weird. And so I have it at 9, but I will get to it if it gets lower. And I do expect it to get lower.
Yeah, I think this line's going down. I think, we see the 7.5 now. I think you will get a 6.5 in this game, maybe even a 6. So I agree with you. If it gets down to 6 or 6.5, I switch to having a lean on Creighton. My number was 7 here. So I have to say I'm right at where, 7.5 or 7 is where it is right now. I wanted to take the underdog, but I can't, and I think this is going to be a trendy underdog. We'll see if it goes down enough for me to like Creighton in this one. My totals number is right at the number right now as well, too, so nothing strong from this game. The next one here, Kiev.
Wait, before you get into that, I do want to mention that I have a lean to the over, though. I have it at 144, and this is at 138. Okay. Now, I guess maybe what kept me off it, because there is a decent amount of point discrepancy for me to bet it, is that whole thing with Creighton here. But I also can see Creighton blowing them out. So I do have a lean to the over. Just wanted a quick mention.
This one's at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is why I had this one set a little bit lower myself. Okay. So, I think if I had to bet, though, I'd bet the over as well, because I think Creighton can score on a team like UCSB. But stronger opinion here for me in the next game, Virginia and Ohio. I'll just go ahead and tell you that Ohio was my first bet I made on Sunday night. Got plus 10 and 9.5, some of both of that. After the Virginia news came out that they were going to be in quarantine and not even get to practice until at least Friday here. So Virginia is going to be without at least one player is the word, and not being able to practice all week is a clear negative. And I think even if it weren't for the COVID situation, Ohio had a chance in a game like this. You know, I'm not just betting this because of the COVID situation. It just makes me like it more. Obviously, I'm from Ohio. I'm an Ohio State fan. Mainly, I do root for Ohio as long as they're not playing Ohio State. But Ohio is a team, to me, not enough people know about Jason Preston. This guy is really good. I mean, he's a tremendous player. He can be really a difference maker. I think he's very underrated. I think he'll have a really good game here. And Virginia's offense isn't good enough. They don't play at a fast enough tempo to really blow teams out very much. This is not the same team from 2 years ago. I think that Virginia's style lends itself to closer games, and that also can lead to upsets if the other team happens to be making their shots. I mean, we saw that before with Virginia when they were the 1 seed. Obviously, they win it the next year, and they're capable of big things. But, you know, I think Ohio has a chance to win this game outright. So I bet plus 10 and plus 9.5, like I said, and I also took some on the money line here. I think Ohio is a live dog, so this is my favorite one I've talked about here.
Fading the former national champion, the Virginia Cavaliers. Look at that. Well, I'll tell you this. The former national champions, actually, I don't even think they made it past the Sweet 16 in most years, which is very interesting. At Virginia, what a weird year for Tony Bennett there. I did say I wanted to bet Ohio last night, and then now it's down to 7. And, I mean, that's kind of where a lot of the metrics have it. So they had it inflated anyway because of Tony Bennett. The books probably put it up higher, expecting to get Virginia money, and instead it kind of backfired in them. One thing I will say is Ohio is more of a fade team for me, you know, just coming into this. But they're unfortunately playing a team that's going through COVID issues and letdown issues, and they're not the same team issues, you know, in Virginia. I want to see how Virginia does this game so I can see if I can fade Gonzaga next game just by a point spread, not necessarily winning or anything. But I wanted to really see how Virginia. The thing about Preston, he is, you know, playing good right now, Jason Preston. But let's face it, man. I mean, he's played the last 5 games. He has that one game against Akron where he didn't play, and then he played the 5 before them. There was a middle of the season where he didn't play. You know, so I think Ohio, I'm mad at myself for backing Buffalo. I did back them, and I lost on that in the MAC championship, and I was shocked to see a Buffalo score 21 points in the first half. Yeah. What the heck was going on? Is that more about Ohio just stepping their defense up, which only ranks 174th in defensive efficiency, or was that more about Buffalo missing? I don't know. But the whole thing about it is that Ohio went through their hot streak, and so this would give me buttons to fade them. But in the situation itself, I'm going to lean with Ohio, just like you did, Kyle, just because of Virginia's problems here and the fact that they're the former national champion with some COVID issues.
All right, and I will say as well, my total in this game is 131. That's exactly what it's at right now. If I had to bet, I would probably bet the under in this game, but no strong opinion there on the total. I do like Ohio quite a bit. The next game, do you want to skip over USC since we don't know who they're going to play? Yes,
let's skip. Yeah, anybody that we don't know how to play.
Yeah.
Now just look at USC. They're another very tall team. The Mobleys are fantastic over there. So just kind of remember that. If they're playing a very speedy team, then maybe watch out. But anybody that tries to play slow against USC, I think might have a challenge because you got to beat them up and down the court, in my opinion. But just use that for your thoughts on the playing game here. And I suppose I could look at the playing game, but you know we already discussed enough of that.
Well, I do want to say Andy Enfeld, USC's coach, is 7-0 against the spread in the NCAA tournament. Now, most of that didn't come at USC; that came at Florida Gulf Coast. But he has done well in this in the past. USC is an inconsistent team, a team that does have a high upside. So we'll see who they match up against there. But the next game we have Kansas and Eastern Washington. Now, I think this is an interesting game because Kansas is not the Kansas they've been in the past. They don't have that offensive firepower that they used to have. But what they've done is they've reinvented themselves. Bill Self said about the middle of the season, they started really working hard in practice on defense. They just spent a ton of time on defense. They realized, look, we don't have as good as shooters as we usually have. We don't have the offensive firepower, but we can win with defense and athleticism. And they've done it. I think that credit is to Bill Self. He's a very good coach. I think some people might underrate him a little bit. On the other side, Eastern Washington, they are the best team in the Big Sky. I think they're very deserving to be here. We just talked about Kiev a little bit ago. The Big Sky is 4-10-1 ATS in this tournament. Eastern Washington did play some good teams in the non-conference. I guess it's fair to say that they didn't play terribly in those games, but Kansas is a pretty athletic team. Like I said, they're not great at shooting. But if you look at who Eastern Washington played earlier in the year and who they played pretty well against, Washington State, they're from the Pac-12, but they're not that good. They lost to Arizona by 3. Arizona was really inconsistent this year. They lost at St. Mary's by 5. They lost to Oregon by 17. They wanted to schedule up in the non-conference, and I think they deserve credit for that. The problem I have here with Eastern Washington is this is a huge step up in class. They've just been playing some really bad teams, and now they step up and play against Kansas. I think that this one does fit the under system that I talked about earlier. That was 82 and 49 with the top seeds. My lean in this game is the under. Eastern Washington, I don't know that they'll score near as many as some people might think because Kansas's defense is that good. Is Kansas going to run up the score or not? I think that's kind of the question here. So I don't have any strong opinion on the side here. Kiev, do you have anything on the side?
Not the full game. This Kansas had the COVID issues, right? And they had to pull out of the Big 12 tournament there. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag there. They did beat Oklahoma, but Oklahoma was coming back, and 2 very bad, poorly whistled fouls came in on Oklahoma, which messed up the spread for people, and they could have possibly won the game outright had those not happened. But, Tristan and Narua, and I think there's David McCormick and the newer guy, which was it Jansen? Jalen Wilson, that's it. And I don't think Jalen Wilson's going to play, but they are saying that even though Tristan and McCormick didn't travel with the team this week, they still can fly in. But that also makes me scratch my head and wonder, well, even if these guys do play, which I think they'll play, I don't think Wilson's going to play, which is a key backup guy. I think that no, he's not key. He's one of the key guys. Sorry, didn't mean to say backup. It makes me look at the first half. I think that Eastern Washington's going to come out firing. This is their chance to prove everything. And yes, they have played a couple of those teams that you mentioned, and I do applaud them from scheduling up. But I think the fact that they scheduled up should take some of the anxiety away from the first half. Now, Agbaji's still playing for Kansas, and Myles Garrett's still playing for Kansas. So, this Kansas team, I tried to fade them against Iowa State that first game, and then they just floored Iowa State. And, yeah, which Kansas are you going to get? I like your look at the under better because maybe they do slow it down. Maybe they do. Maybe those guys, when they come back, are rusty, kind of like in those COVID pauses. So I think the way I'm going to play it is the first half, Eastern Washington +6. And I think that, it's almost like a free roll there. What if all 3 guys don't play, right? Maybe they rest all 3 because of the COVID, and you're looking pretty good there. And I think their line's going to adjust there. But there's never your under is almost like a free roll because even if those guys play, that under could still hit. So I'm going to lean to the under and take the first half, Kyle.
Okay, that's fair. We move on to the next game here, Oregon and VCU. Oregon's the team I'm pretty high on. Dana Altman's been really good at the end of the season. I think Oregon has a chance to beat Iowa in the second game if they do meet there. I think that's kind of an underrated little dangerous game for Iowa. Oregon, to me, is a team that their stats for the season don't look as good as what they actually are right now. You know, they had a lot of COVID issues and a lot of injuries. Lately, though, Oregon, outside of the one bad performance against Oregon State in the Pac-12 conference tournament, they're certainly playing much better. And if you look at VCU, look, we know who VCU is. They try to force a lot of turnovers. They're ninth in turnover percentage forced, according to KenPom. And Oregon, on the other side, they have good ball handlers. You know, I don't know that Oregon's going to be bothered as much by this press as most teams would be. Oregon also uses a zone press themselves, and they can really get some turnovers and quick scores off of that. If you look at VCU, they're really bad at taking care of the basketball. They're 20.6% of their possessions end in a turnover, and in the league it was 21.2% of their possessions, so it's actually gotten worse. I think VCU is going to struggle with this Oregon defense. I like Oregon in this game. As we look at it right now, Oregon is -5.5. I do wonder if we get a 5 here. 5 is a pretty key number in college basketball. I want to see if I can get a 5 in this one. I like Oregon here. I think Oregon moves on. VCU, a team that's been really consistent. If you look at Haslametrics consistency rankings, and I know you and I both think that Haslametrics is a tremendous site, VCU is 8th. But I guess my question for you, Kiev, is that really a good thing here? Because they're really consistent because we know who they are, but I don't know if they can beat a team that's this good. You know, I mean, they're VCU, and early in the season, they did beat Utah State on a neutral. They lost badly to West Virginia. They lost at Penn State. They didn't play very well against St. Bonaventure the times they played them either. I think Oregon's upside is pretty high here, and I think the fact that VCU is so consistent, I think they're consistently a pretty good team. I think Oregon, a really well-coached team that has a higher upside.
Definitely a higher upside with Oregon, and they did go through that patch where their guys were very, very cold. I don't want to fade Altman in this position here. And I almost like the teams that did lose in their conference to a bad team like Oregon State. And I'm going to give a shout out to Oregon State, first of all. What a great way to steal a bid and get into this tournament. What a fantastic finish that was for them in the Pac-12. Nobody saw that coming. What were they, like 100-1 or something, or 50-1 at least, I think, to win that Pac-12 tournament. In saying that, VCU stole some bids themselves. I mean, I think VCU was lucky and fortunate enough that they came into the season ranked pretty high. Okay. And then they face West Virginia and they lose, but they're still ranked high. It's kind of like the Duke factor. Duke's only 33rd in KenPom, but they're worse than that. You know, it's like they're 33rd because they're started so high. But I also don't believe that VCU's defense is 89.6% either. I think ranking number 12 in the nation. I'm not buying that either. Now, VCU does play pretty fast. You saw them lose to the Bonnies, but Oregon has the upside here in this situation, and Oregon's going to come in with some serious firepower and more talent. I don't like it at 5.5, Kyle.
It's a lot.
I agree with because VCU is consistent and they're pretty good. They're not. It's not like we're talking about a bad team here. The Atlantic 10 is ranked higher than maybe I would rank them, but they're still good. They're still pretty good there. You know, Dayton was a pretty good team. Richmond was really good this year. We thought Richmond was going to make the tournament. So there you go, Davidson. I think that at 4.5 is my number to buy on Oregon.
Okay, and for me, I'll take it if it gets to 5. I do see there are a couple 5s out in Vegas, none offshore. So we'll see if we get a 5. If so, I'll be on Oregon in this one. I agree. I was hoping the price would be cheaper, to be honest. You know, just power ratings wise, I don't think this is a wonderful value or anything, but I like Oregon. I like their upside. I think they're a very well coached team. Altman's 14-5-1 against the spread in his last 20 games in the NCAA tournament. So I trust him to have his team ready to go here. I don't have any lean really on the total in this game either, but I do like Oregon. I think there will be a 5 at some point, so I'm likely to be on Oregon in this game. The next one, and I believe the last game here, Iowa and Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's a team I believe Kiev knows a decent amount about, and Iowa, a team that both of us know pretty well because they're in the Big Ten. We see a lot of them. Iowa's a team that, to me, they have a ton of height. Garza is a great player down low. They also shoot the ball well. I'm still concerned about Iowa's defense, though. I know they're better than they used to be. I'm not saying Iowa has a terrible defense. They play a lot of zone defense. They've been playing 33% of their possessions have been zone defense, which is really high. That's far higher than most teams in the country. Grand Canyon has not seen much zone, but they haven't been good against it. Only 0.86 points per play, which is the 30th percentile in the country. Grand Canyon does have three big guys. One of them doesn't play very much, 6'10", 6'10", and a 7-footer. So they do have some height to match up with Iowa. I think Grand Canyon is a tougher matchup for Iowa than the other 15 seeds would have been. In general, I see Iowa as a team that likes to run up the score. They're not afraid to pile on. McCaffrey keeps his team running and gunning. At the same time, I think Grand Canyon, Bryce Drew is a good coach. I think they'll have a good game plan for this game. I lean toward Grand Canyon in this one, and this is not necessarily a numbers play. I just think the matchup-wise, I think this game could be a little bit lower scoring than you would think. I lean to the under as well in this one. So I think Grand Canyon is a bit of a tricky matchup for Iowa as a 15 seed at least.
It is. And where's this being played here? Is it in Lucas Oil? I don't think so. No,
this one's at Indiana Farmers Coliseum, so not the bad shooting backdrop.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, I think I do lean to the under, but I'm going to ask you this, Kyle. Is this going to be the last weekend that I have to hear all the announcers drooling all over themselves about Luka Garza?
Well, it might be. I think Oregon has a real chance.
The Lopes, baby. I think the Lopes have a chance here, man. Grand Canyon, what an exciting team! I've seen worse. Worse. We don't have to talk about the Baltimore, Maryland Retrievers right now, but this is a number 2 seed, and number 2 seeds have been upset, I believe, 8 times before in this NCAA tournament. Now, I'm not saying that you should take a money line play or anything like this, and I'm not even saying I'm playing it yet because I want to see what the public's going to do. But Grand Canyon is a very exciting team, and if you ever get down to Arizona, I suggest trying to get to one of these games because these fans go absolutely nuts over their teams. Midgard and Lever are their tall guys, and they score a ton inside. But Midgard, he actually shoots the 3 at almost 40% himself. Iowa's a very smart team, right? And here's what they do. They shoot 3s, get rebounds, and score, or they go to the paint. I mean, they only shoot 20% of their shots as jump shots. That's good for basketball. We've talked that a lot, and I'm happy for Iowa for that. But Iowa, if they get cold in this new shooting backdrop, I think almost at Lucas Oil Stadium, the fact that they played there a couple times might have given them a little bit more of an advantage there than going here. I mean, the tricky part for Iowa is that Grand Canyon defends the 3 ball. And it could be, and you remember the conference. You got to look at the WAC and say this is possibly because that everyone else stinks. But still, 29.9% only go in, ranking 18th in the league. They rank 6th in defensive field goal efficiency. So, I mean, the Lopes kind of have a nice little resume coming in here. If Iowa doesn't play some defense here, and Grand Canyon gets hot, I can definitely see an upset brewing here. And sorry, Iowa fans, but Nunji, he's out. He's not going to be able to give Garza some rest. Wieskamp is in, but I still think he's a little bit banged up, right? He did play in the Big Ten tournament, but you saw Iowa play. They didn't look like Iowa the last few games either. So Iowa in a neutral backdrop here. The Lopes have nothing to lose. I got Iowa winning by 13, man. I'm going to see where this spread goes. I think it goes up to 16 here, possibly before the game. But if you want to get cute and play them early, I don't have a problem with it. And throw them in a little bit of a parlay if you want to do that for some fun money. But on a serious play, I'll be probably on Iowa here for a few stars here. And I also lean the under.
Yep, I agree. I think we're in agreement about this game. I think we see 14.5 at most books now, some 15 showing up. I think you get at least 15 or 15.5 in this one because if you look at it right now, Iowa, 64% of the tickets are on Iowa. So a lot of people betting Iowa in this game. I don't think that's going to change. So it might even be the one that fits the angle that we talked about earlier, Kev, the one about the 37% of bets or less on one team. It wouldn't surprise me if Grand Canyon fits that angle. So let's see where the money goes here, but I like Grand Canyon and I like the under some as well.
All right, fantastic, Kyle. Well, we got through all the games that we could here, my man. Great stuff. Thank you for the breakdowns. Thank you for the free plays here. Where could our listeners find your great information for this huge weekend of sports?
So you can head over to huntersportspicks.com. You can sign up for the free picks newsletter over there as well. There'll be some free plays coming. I already sent out a futures prop bet free play. There's going to be lots of stuff coming your way from that newsletter. Also, plenty of premium plays already put up. I will be putting up even more of those. If you want to get my plays for the rest of the season, I'm going to do $199. Mention the Odds Breakers podcast. Send me a message, Kyle at huntersportspicks.com or at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter to get that special price.
Kyle's the best totals man in the business, guys. He's profitable. Make sure you check him out at Hunter Sports Picks. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'll be texting you throughout the tournament.
That sounds good. Everybody enjoy the madness.
Fantastic job by Kyle Hunter as usual. My friends, we just got some news in. Moses Wright from Georgia Tech is injured, and it looks like COVID, actually, and he's going to be missing his game versus Loyola. That spread moved pretty quickly when that happened. Now, I don't have as much of an opinion on that game, but as you've seen many times in the past, the rest of the team tends to kind of step up for his missing presence. So I'm not as high on Georgia Tech as I was against Loyola, but I still think that they can win this game. My friends, did you guys think that I was going to go and leave you hanging without bringing back our bow to the gambling gods parlay?
Hell no, to the no, no, no. Hell to the no, hell to the no, to the no, no, no.
All right, my friends, it's March Madness. We're going to have a little bit of fun here. Remember, this is just fun money, not serious money for your bankroll. We're going to start with Thursday. We're going to take Texas Tech minus 175 to win. Hartford versus Baylor under 140. Purdue minus 310 to win the game. Oklahoma State minus 7.5. That pays about 7-1. For the next one on Saturday, we are going to give you Dayton versus Memphis over 137, Florida State minus 10.5, Eastern Washington, Kansas under 146.5, LSU minus 1.5, Grand Canyon plus 15, and Alabama minus 16.5. This one, of course, pays 50-1. One of those lottery tickets ones. This is just one I'm going to play. Remember, when you play your parlays, just do very small amounts. Nothing from your main bankroll for this weekend. Remember, bankroll management is the most important thing when it comes to huge events like March Madness, the Super Bowl, and anything else that you're betting on throughout the year, my friends. Make sure you have a blast watching these games. Remember to get into our tournament challenge and go get some winners.